Afternoon. I would like to call to order tonight's meeting of the ISD 191 School Board's Policy Review Committee. The date is August 19th, 2025, and the time is 5 p.m. I'd like to welcome folks that are joining us in the audience and also at home. Thank you for taking time to learn about our school district. We'll start with policies with changes, starting with Policy 621, Literacy and the READ Act. Yamina Oftedal, Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment is with us. Welcome.
Thank you very much. The policy 621, if you recall, was a new policy that was created in alignment with the READ Act. And so all of the information in that policy relates to READ Act and literacy instruction. During the last legislative session, there were some changes in definitions around some terms that many folks had considered vague. And so there was some clarity. And then there is a large portion of the policy which addresses dual immersion programs, dual language immersion programs, which was some needed changes for school districts that were engaging in those types of instruction. Some of the changes are also legislated in terms of their changes in due dates and some of the permissions that we've been given to conduct training internally.
Great. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, committee members?
Only one very nitpicky kind of comment. Way down in section 5, identification and report, in paragraph A, I think we have too many ands, where before the very big, at the very beginning in the first sentence, it is including multilingual learners, comma, what I think it should be, including multilingual learners, comma, students receiving special education services, comma, and students enrolled in. I think the and between multilingual learners and the students receiving special education services, that and gets cut. Sure. Otherwise, we've got too many ands.
Yeah, and I think it's because the phrasing from the legislation groups multilingual students and students who are receiving special education services together so much.
Oh, okay.
And so
there is a reason for
I agree that there's too many ands.
Gotcha, so it is there for a reason.
But I believe it's because of the phrasing in the legislation.
Ah, gotcha, okay, that they do want to lump those together. Thank you.
Good catch.
I just have a quick question also. So with the dual language immersion programs, we're adding that because of the legislative changes, even though we do not offer those programs currently.
That's correct. And so if we would in the future ever offer that, we would have that guidance included in our policy.
All right. Anything else? No? All right. We'll have that on first reading, please. Next, we will, let me get back to my agenda. We'll go to policy 418, drug-free workplace, drug-free school with Dr. Belmont. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, directors. Policy 418 is kind of one of those policies that interacts with several of our directors, Director Sovine, Director Piotrowski, and Director Oftedal. The change proposed by the School Board Association in response to the 2025 legislative session is around cannabis programming, specific for a member of the tribal medical cannabis program. So it just reads, the school district may not refuse to enroll or otherwise penalize a patient or person enrolled in the Minnesota Patient Registry Program or a tribal medical cannabis program as a pupil solely because the patient or person is enrolled in the registry program, and again, the addition of or a tribal medical cannabis program. Then it details due process obligations that the employer would have if that person's, and also it does maintain the language that unless failing to do so would violate federal law or regulations or cause the school to lose a monetary or licensing related benefit under federal law or regulations. I did check with Director Sovine as well. He said this is a fairly non-substantive change. It just seeks to also include those members.
Great. right. Questions or comments? All right. Policy 418 will be on first reading.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we move to policy 501, school weapons policy, with Dr. Belmont.
501 is another one that's been up quite a bit with review committee in recent years. This changes that are proposed from the most recent legislative session involve active shooters. We did also just modernize and make some language more inclusive throughout the policy. Direct the board's attention to some of the language around active shooters. In working with law enforcement, they've broadened the definition of what an active shooter is, and then they've added reporting obligations. So that's detailed in the statute.
Great. Questions, comments?
I mean, again, I think it's kind of half a dozen or sixes, is why we have the definition of an active shooter incident and an active shooter threat down at the bottom in section 7 instead of up with the rest of the definitions. I mean, it still gets the information there, but I just found it interesting that, at the very end, those are definitions, why they're not up in the definition section. Yeah.
Was there an intentional reason for?
That I would have to inquire with the school board association, and did they intend for us to shift that and include it into our definitions instead?
I think it's important that it's there, and so I don't think it's critical as far as one or the other, but I just found it interesting that it was down there in section 7 instead of 3 with the rest of the
That's a good
definitions.
question.
I was just wondering if there was any specific reason why they were put down there.
I have not received that type of question before, and I'm not sure in this context. Should we look into it and look at, it's up to you, Chair, if you want us to.
Not that
just
big a
look at
deal, I think.
Just approve a formatting shift if we find that it's more appropriate to be in the definitions section.
I think we can agree that if it's just shifting that language into definitions, that's fine if it's determined to leave it as is.
Okay, we'll get back to you if we're changing content at all.
Okay, great.
All right.
So we'll keep, and I had one question. Sorry, Scott, did you have any?
Nope.
No? Okay. Because we just looked at it, the student handbook last Thursday, I'm wondering if we, on page 501.2 do we need to add airsoft to the list of examples? And I'm trying to find the list of examples. It's up top. What constitutes a...
I see air guns.
Of dangerous weapons.
I would have to, I thought we had tightly aligned our handbook language with this, but we can double check. I see, do you see where it says air guns, then pellet guns?
Yeah.
Are you then? This is the question.
It does say air guns, yeah.
And I don't know what an airsoft is, so, I mean, is that an air gun?
So,
It's an air nerf gun.
Gotcha. If we don't think it's important, or if it's already covered.
An airsoft gun is a type of air gun, according to Google.
Okay.
I think the question's fair, though, that we want to make sure we're using the same terminology in the handbook as the policy, so I can look into that.
Okay.
My guess is this policy comes from statute, and then, so that, well, yeah, like, to Director Hume's point, I don't know if that word soft makes a difference or not, but we can look into it.
Cool.
or in parentheses,
Maybe
Yeah.
it's air gun
E.g.
slash
hypothetically,
airsoft
yeah.
or something.
Such as.
Just so it's consistent, or there are different words floating around that mean the same thing. It's good to include them all, I suppose.
And then on page 501.2, under 4 exceptions, there is one additional his or her that we can change to they, them. Let's see if I can find it. In the second line, line A, under exceptions A, have a weapon in his or her possession.
Yep. It's like a word find
Yep,
game. Thank you.
yep, no problem.
Found it.
So that will
Funny
be,
that it's in the same sentence, but they've already caught a couple other.
so this will be on first reading.
Okay, we'll make that adjustment. We'll make that change.
Thank you. Next, we go to policy 503, student attendance.
We'll invite Director Piotrowski up for this. She's our attendance. She's been inundated with the attendance pilots.
I can imagine, yeah.
503. So student attendance, part of what we wanted to share too with the review committee, the technical changes are pretty minimal here with what we're looking at. There's, MSBA came out with new guidance about who receives the application of appeal in a excusal situation where the parents advocating and the office procedures are not allowing for that absence to be excused. They're just naming that it goes to a school official designated by the principal rather than a member of the board or the superintendent. And then we did, through the attendance handbook process, that team that's been working all summer, Director Piotrowski and Morgan McDonald have been working with them, did suggest that we add language around family vacations. Currently in policy, there is nothing that speaks to family vacations, but it's a reality for our families. We have families who go overseas for personal things like that. So the idea on the table is that family vacations totaling up to 5 days within the school year could be excused. So, I don't know if you want to speak to more of that.
You know, there was just a lot of conversation that we do have a lot of families that take extended time of vacations, and this would allow families to take 5 days of vacation and miss 5 days of school, and then after that, there's a conversation about missed school for family vacations.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments? Scott, you?
I'm not sold on the family vacation, but I don't know that I have a question. So,
We're interested in the discussion.
right.
Some of this is in uncharted waters. The pilot schools are looking at new innovative things to do to help improve some of those attendance markers and the partnership between homes and schools. This is one that has come up.
Sure. Remind me when we had our conversations around attendance, probably in the spring, we talked about how the state records and tracks
Yes.
attendance. Are excused absences recorded any differently than unexcused?
No. Excused, unexcused, out-of-school suspensions, they all move towards chronic absenteeism.
Okay.
So it is all part of the chronic absentee. So,
So moving it from one bucket to the next doesn't change anything, kind of how the state is monitoring.
yep.
That was what I was wondering, I think.
Rachel, did you have questions? I guess in that same vein, I do have questions. You answered the first one, why are we putting this in policy? Because it's a new option that school districts are considering. I have concerns about enforcement and tracking. Is this a one-time vacation? What happens if it's twice? Is it back-to-back? Like, say they take 2 weeks, right? Is it 5 days and then we get, or maybe within the same month it's 2? Tracking of this and also enforcement, I hesitate to put it in policy because while, yes, we do have families taking vacation during the school year, we really do want to encourage our students to be in school, and there are other times that families could take vacation. The extended vacations, of course, will be what they are because then you run the risk, depending on how long it is, of being dropped. So,
Yeah, those are all points that I've heard in the discussions, even in my limited time with
Yeah.
the group.
A lot of those conversations have come up as well, and not, the tracking, the vacation tracking is a little bit easier because it is tracked under vacation. And so.
There's a code.
Yeah, there's a code for it, so we can track the vacation pretty easily. And it just becomes an excused absence. You know, it's just a matter of enforcing is a good question, because then does that come down to how do we address that with families? Is that a barrier? Is that a conversation that we just need to bring them to the table and talk about absenteeism? Or is it that, you know, it's put in there and anything after 5 days is unexcused, no questions asked?
but that's
So-
not what the policy says.
Right, yep. But those are the conversations that we've been having. So,
Yep. And you asked some questions to Director Alt about so this, we did try to choose wording that would be clear that it's up to 5 days within that school year. So it wouldn't matter if you take them intermittently or
Just 5
altogether.
days.
yeah, just 5 days.
And and again, to represent the team that's advocating for this, right now we don't have clarity or direction in our schools or consistency around the topic of vacation. So this would be, the hope is to add some language and discussion to it. The parents can always go to that what I mentioned with the change, the principal or their designee to seek additional exceptions. So these are just detailed as some of the exceptions for excusals. It doesn't mean that there's no more recourse for the families, and this is a change that we will live with either putting into policy or not. I think it's not gonna
Well,
derail
sure,
everything that
yes.
we're doing with our attendance works.
Right. So as I'm reading this, so are you,
Please.
so 5 days during the school year, so it's not necessarily consecutive days. It could be 3 days before MEA and 2 days before spring break or something, and that would be the 5 days that they would have during the year. And I think what I just heard you say is that after that, it's not necessarily unexcused. They could still apply to the principal for an exception. Is that what you said?
Yeah, application can be made to the truancy officer or the school official designated by the principal. The principal
But
can
there's some
require
sort
a
of, I don't know,
note.
what an extenuating circumstance would be that they need to take 2 weeks of vacation during the school year, but I'm sure I'm sure they happen. Yeah.
I guess I'm not all that thrilled with it, but as a member of the policy committee, I don't, Rachel, do you have any other comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's, I think it is that push-pull. We really want to be emphasizing attendance and, you know, and I think especially, you know, if anything, I would say, you know, perhaps enhancing it to be 5 consecutive days, because, I mean, missing 1 or 2 days one semester and 2 days another semester isn't as impactful as, you know, if you miss a whole week and you're then stretching into 2 weeks in a row, I mean, a lot of those concepts and everything, if that is something that it gives a little bit more of that flexibility for our families as far as like what was stated, you know, you have a couple of days before MEA and a day or two before Christmas and a day or before spring break, and all of a sudden, you know, you're kind of in trouble versus, you know, 2 weeks before spring break and, you know, I mean, and you're gone or something. You know, if it's maybe 5 consecutive days is something that.
On the other hand, it kind of waters it down.
Yes, well,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah, that's
But
the
that
trade-off.
as far as the, you know,
Yeah.
but does that provide some of the, I don't know, flexibility or something? I
The
just.
thing I like
don't
about,
know.
if we're gonna have it in there, I like the 5 days though, because otherwise potentially, this probably wouldn't happen, but potentially a family could go out of town every weekend and say,
Right,
well, it
yes.
wasn't 5 consecutive days,
Right, yeah,
so.
oh, absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess what I struggle with, and I'm fine with it moving forward if the rest of the group is, but is the policy intended to reflect the reality that we're living in? Or is it more aspirational of what do we want our students and families to be doing? And I think this is kind of getting to the heart of that in my mind is, yes, the reality is families are planning vacations during the school year. We know that. And this policy reflects that reality, which maybe that's fine. But also at a time when we spend a lot of time and energy talking about attendance and it continues to be a challenge, do we want to make it easier for families to miss school? I don't know if this makes it easier, but now we're codifying it in policy. So that's my concern.
That's exactly where my mind was going, and like you, Scott, I'm not interested necessarily in holding this back. I'm not completely sold on the suggestion of making it easier. Because we as a school district, I mean, our responsibility is to educate the students and to hold people accountable, families and students alike. Reality, yes.
And so, you could be a part of our attendance team.
I was just thinking, I bet he's had these conversations.
The current reality, though, just to put a fine point on it, the current reality is endless excusals of vacations. So this is, so currently parents.
Because families are excusing their children when they go on vacation, and there's nothing to put a stop on it.
There's just a level of automaticity with it, so.
I would say that that's probably one of the main questions that we get asked through this. It's like, well, because when you think about the different scenarios when we're putting our committees together, we're bringing up experiences that our social workers and our administrators have had in their buildings. And this is probably one of the top three things, is like, what do we do with the families that are on vacation for this, that, or the other thing? You know, but we have left, there's a lot of things in policy that if it is a family emergency, if it is anything like that, that's excused, you know. But a family vacation is a planned vacation. Most often, it usually isn't a spur of the moment. And if we're planning correctly, like through the, long weekends that we have for whatever, if we are able to plan that, then we can be a little bit more sporadic. But I think that the multiple times that we have students that miss multiple days in a row, they actually do fall further behind with just like 1 or 2 days. If we have 5 days in a row, okay, yep, we met that, then second quarter we have another 5 days, and then in the spring we have another 5 days. That's a lot of time. And our students that are, trying to get their credits and things like that made, that's not anything that we can hold them back from because we have nothing here. And so, but I will say in some of our buildings with some of our families, that is our reality, is that there is multiple.
So that was really helpful. I think when this comes before the full board, including that information in terms of this is the reality, we have no way of they're just endless excused absences. I think that kind of is a good reminder for everybody that that's where we are.
I guess maybe why was the 5? Why 5? Why not 3? Why not 7? I mean, is there anything about, it seems like a good, a full week kind of number.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I think that was just, we talked about 5, we talked about 10, but then once you get to 10, now you're beyond that 90% or whatever, so the 5 was within that 90. And it also, if you got a couple sick days, you got a couple things like that, things that come up, that also go excused, unexcused, and suspensions go towards that. It doesn't go into that chronic absenteeism quite as much. So it gives you a little bit of leeway.
And most family vacations are going to be about a week, so 5 school days.
A week. And most families, I would say, probably take that when they've already got some time or 1 or 2 days off with President's Day or anything like that, or, a professional development day. Students aren't in. That's a great time to plan your vacation.
And if it's longer than 5 days, the conversation will happen.
Right.
Good conversation. Anything else?
I have nothing else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. So this will be first reading, please. Next, we're going to policy 515, protection and privacy of pupil records, staying with Dr. Belmont.
Okay, thank you. The board has seen 515 quite a bit too over the last several years with the legislative changes around directory information. Also tried to find some more of those inclusive, modernized nomenclature. This change reads, a parent's personal contact information must be treated as private data on individuals regardless of whether that contact information was previously designated as or treated as directory information under Minnesota statutes. So that is an additional layer that was put into the last legislative session, including parents' personal contact information. I know we've already had a lengthy discussion around student attendance, but I would just be curious with the board and Superintendent Daniels thinks about how I am wrestling a little bit with how best to word directory information. Currently, we use the MSBA guidance that just walks us through, this is what the federal law says around directory information. Here, I can direct you to the exact language. Sorry, 1 second. It's at the... Sorry, y'all. I had it
It's okay.
flagged at one point. Thank you. I knew it was at the beginning. This is a lengthy policy. 5152. So in addition to that change from the MSBA guidance, I was wondering if the board could engage in a little bit of a discussion on how best we could approach. So I find it a little bit problematic and confusing the way we lay out the federal law of directory information, detail it, and then label state law and how that differs, and then kind of at the end just say we follow state law. I'm comfortable with it if you all are comfortable with it. I've also just combed through a lot of other district policies, and they essentially create their own messaging around what's allowed and what's not, leaning heavily on what's in state law. So,
Good question. Thank you. Thoughts on including federal versus...
Yes, I thought in today's environment, this is good to get some additions in here.
What was that?
Just based on today's environment and everything, getting some additional statements and clarification and clarity on things in here, I thought was good.
So yeah, it's that section 3D, how best to share that story through policy. And maybe it's just how we
I see what you're, yeah.
share it in our student handbook, we just put in what's in the state law. So what our public generally sees is more clear.
Thoughts, Scott?
I guess I would think we would, in terms of our own directory, go with whichever one is probably more restrictive. If there's one that has, it must include this, it shouldn't include that. If we can, you don't want to, so the two laws basically seem to contradict each other a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we do in other cases like that, I guess, when state and federal law, is there a conflict?
I mean, council has typically shared with me that state law precedes or takes precedent over federal law.
That's my thought as well.
That's what the attorney shared with, the district attorney shared with me when I asked her about certain aspects, certain concerns as a result of what was happening at a federal level. And she said that typically state law prevails and overrules what happens at a federal level.
That's my answer then.
So I can prepare something for our next committee meeting where it's really just focused in on that
Yeah.
state.
Yeah. I think that would be great. And I agree with Rachel. I think that additional clarification, the additional level makes complete sense, and,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thank you.
All right, so, anything else?
No.
Oh, all right, so this will be first reading.
Okay.
Next, we move to policy 206, the policy and regulations on listening session. And this is with Dr. Daniels.
Good evening, directors. I am bringing before you formally changes to policy 206, especially around our listening session protocols. Making sure that we are, the purpose and goal of these changes are to make sure that we are acting with efficiency, acting more planfully, actually providing more access by removing impediments or barriers for signing up for public comment or listening sessions, and also just creating a positive culture and environment around listening sessions. We just had a robust conversation about changes that would make this change in protocols, or these changes in protocols, palatable and acceptable for the board, and so I'm bringing it forth to you all for further discussion and consideration to move forward with as a first read.
Great, thank you very much. Questions or comment?
I think this accurately reflects what we talked about last week, so thank you for that. Under point number, listening session protocol, agenda items, section A, number 2. Individuals should note if their public comment will address something directly related to an agenda item on an upcoming board meeting or a non-agenda related item. Is that something that we would have as like a checkbox on the online form? Or would they, when would they note that that is something that's on the board agenda?
If the board packet goes live on Monday at noon.
Right.
And they have until that Wednesday
Yep.
at noon to sign up for a listening session, they could be referring to the board packet to want to speak towards a particular agenda item that's represented in the board packet. And so that would be an opportunity, or if they want to just discuss, something that was of deep concern to them, just overall occurring in the district, they would have that opportunity as well. So if that is a request or an ask, that's something that we can add to the sign-up form.
I just think the way it's worded, to me, that implies that it would be part of the sign-up form. So,
Well, and although I'm wondering, they're going to be putting down what the topic is? We know what the agenda is, we'll know if it's on the agenda. Is this necessary? I mean, and how many people, I don't know if everybody's actually going and looking at the board agenda to know whether or not, something that they're interested in speaking on is, I mean, if we're going to have it, maybe putting, have an
some do.
option, yes on the agenda, no or unknown, or don't know, if we do have it listed. But, I mean, if we've got the topic, we'll know if it's on the agenda.
That's fair, yeah. And I guess, does it really matter if they know or not, or if
Right,
it's just a
if it's an agenda
coincidence?
item or not.
right.
Because it's still going to have the same impact if it's an agenda item that night.
I mean, again, I'm cool with having it on there, just like say, having the option of, like, don't know, if we do have it on the sign up for people.
Maybe we
Yeah.
add that and, see what happens, and
Yeah.
Yes, and we can come back and make revisions if necessary, changes.
anything else?
I have a couple of things. Because I don't have lots of years of history with the listening sessions, but, with ones that I've been in, as far as submitting a written copy of a prepared statement in advance of the meeting that's in number 3. I'm just wondering if it's just that it would be appreciated to provide, if it's going to be a written, prepared statement, having a copy available to give us after making the statement or something, I guess.
I was going to ask
Having
that
it
also.
before the meeting, it just seems like if I was someone in the public, I'd be looking at that going, they want to be prepared to counter me, or it's they're not, having it ahead of time, I don't know.
Which is not anything that we would be able to do in a listening session.
Right, exactly. But it gives the impression of they're wanting to be, I don't know, it just doesn't seem, it would feel intimidating to me, or that there is an effort to keep me from maybe, or stop me from speaking if they don't like what I have in my prepared statement.
Right.
For somebody that hasn't been to a listening session or doesn't really know the protocol, I would see that as intimidating.
And I would say
To
what
do it
does frequently
beforehand.
happen, and it happened as recently as Thursday,
Right.
where people bring a written statement and then they turn it in.
Right, and that I love.
And
Yeah.
maybe we can
Exactly,
rephrase
change the
this
wording.
statement.
Yes.
That speakers may be asked to submit a written copy of their prepared statement at the
the
meeting.
conclusion.
At the
Right.
conclusion
And just,
of the
yeah.
meeting, or at the, something like that, so
That's-
that we get it, because I do think it's helpful if somebody's taking the time to
Absolutely.
write a 3-page summary of what they want to say. It's helpful for us to have that, have a copy of that if there is follow-up that the superintendent or the board needs to do.
Right. And to kind of have something along with that, that
Right.
we may ask, because it is helpful, to submit, have a copy of a prepared written statement to be able to submit after
Right.
presenting your information
Well,
at the meeting.
And I think in terms of policy reflecting practice, that's kind of what we're talking about, right? That it's a two-way street. They may be asked, and they may choose to share. Like, we may ask, I think it might be more welcoming to say speakers may choose.
I was just going to suggest something
Yes.
like that, yeah.
Yes, if you would like to submit
Speakers may submit a written copy of their prepared statement
Ahead
ahead
of
of
at the
time,
meeting
or
after
we'd
they are done
appreciate
speaking
being
at
able
the
to have a
meeting,
copy
or-
at the meeting,
Right.
after the conclusion or something, yeah.
So then, speakers may submit a written copy of their prepared statement following the speaking session, the listening
Right.
session.
We can wordsmith it.
I captured, speakers may submit a written copy of their prepared statement at the conclusion of the meeting.
And that's exactly what happened this past Thursday.
Yep. About this very topic,
Exactly.
because they had looked at the agenda online.
Exactly. And it was one of two. Both did not submit their written statement, but the one who had written a statement
Right.
and read it.
Because not everybody has something
Right.
that's prepared in
Sometimes it's like
writing,
on a
and I want to just
file,
make
like a
sure
note-
that,
a
yes,
note card
you
or
can still
something, or
talk,
scrap
you
of
don't
paper.
have to
Right.
prepare something and draft
Right.
something
Right.
and have it submitted, and,
Exactly.
we still want to hear from you.
And phones, some people are reading their phones.
Yeah, right, yeah. And I guess the other thing was asking as far as selecting one person to speak. Sometimes it's coordinated, and people are there, and know each other talking about the same topic, but other times, I mean, they may not. It may not, the whole thing of one person may be asked to, that you may be asked to select a representative.
Right.
I
It typically doesn't come up unless there are
really
a lot, like,
right.
once every couple of years when we have like 500
Yes.
teachers here during contract negotiations, and obviously we don't have time for all 500 of them to speak.
Right, yes.
So
And
a select
that's where-
number that
yep.
they've kind of identified would be the ones that would speak until time runs out, essentially.
Right, and that's where I wonder if we should be putting, if there's enough, due to time constraints, in a situation of time
I think
constraints.
I think we're
It
good
does
the
say
way
that
it
in the
is.
guidelines that we read at the beginning.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm not sure,
Because
but.
it doesn't happen all that often, but having
No.
this in policy
Yeah.
as clearly as it is, and I can't remember the last time that we've actually done that, but it's nice to have that to fall back on when we
Well,
have,
it definitely, I mean, I think there needs to be something there.
we don't need to
in there.
explain
I
ourselves.
know there was a
But-
meeting last spring, like spring of '24, when I had the listening session, and we did have the hundreds of teachers here, and I had to have my watch buzzing, like, I think they got 60 seconds or something, each speaker, maybe 90 seconds, so.
And
for
there was
those
another one.
rare
Oh, I
situations,
definitely
we
know
need
that, yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
there'll be times when there'll be enough people, but just that, I don't know. And maybe it's not necessary as far as that this is not typical, where it's necessary.
Right, like
You
last
know,
week, we had two
that-
people who wanted to talk about the listening session, we had only 2 speakers, so it was fine, so sometimes it's fine.
Right, but, it's okay if you've got 4 people speaking on the same subject,
Right.
Right, as
that
long
all
as
4
they,
will still be able to talk,
right, as long as they've signed up
but,
Right,
to, the process is expecting people to sign up in advance. And so as long as they've signed up in advance,
yeah.
we wouldn't stop them from speaking. It's just trying to create efficiencies and be more purposeful and planful in who is coming to speak, also in respect and being courteous in consideration of your time, just in case someone does not show up and you all are here. So
Right.
it's all
It
around
was just,
streamlining.
it was just,
efficiencies.
is there some clarity around when we may ask for one representative to speak on behalf of, as far as, I mean, how many is multiple? I guess,
Right.
and maybe
I mean-
that's not necessary.
yeah.
I think
That's
if we,
fine.
if we make it more fine-tuned, you want to keep policy broad.
Yeah,
Right. And sometimes, even if,
and that's fine.
I mean, this wasn't exactly, well, a little bit, the 2 people that wanted to talk about the listening session last week had different things they wanted to talk about. So even if they have the same big topic, they might have different specific things that they want to talk about.
Right,
So
and
that
that's why,
it's not even
that's why I
necessarily the
would be,
same.
as someone
They're not just
reading that,
repeating each
going,
other.
well, how do I know that this other person that wants to talk on the same topic
Right.
is going to be saying the things that I want? And so I'd look at that like, is it, am I?
Most of the time, people
So-
will self-select out. If that's, like, I've had other
Mm-hmm.
listening sessions where somebody says, well, they said what I was going to say, so I don't need to speak now. So yeah, people don't want to waste their time any more than they want to waste ours.
And when it is when we do have a listening session where we have a large group like the teachers, they do a really nice job of, in the last couple times that I can recall, in terms of covering different topics. Granted
Yes.
that the broad umbrella topic is the same, but there are different aspects of it that are shared.
Totally.
And
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think someplace like, the tutorial community, the teachers, they're organized. They know what the listening session rules are. They know they're going to, they probably will have nominated people to speak because, they know what the time constraints are and everything. It's the people who don't come to these frequently or don't know that was my concern, is not the really organized groups. It's, yeah, and so fine, yeah, no problem.
I had one other
Just
thing
wanted to
that's
bring that up.
not related to a proposed change to the policy, but I wanted to bring up, maybe it's something that officers could talk about with Dr. Daniels, or we could talk about in our next work session. And that's the report that comes after the listening session. And the policy is a report summarizes the listening session, a report summarizing the listening session will be given and distributed to board members via the consent agenda at a future meeting. Yes, that happens, but it's typically Jane Smith spoke about the listening session policy. And there's not really any depth or meat to it. And we don't have anybody there the superintendent and the board members who are there can take notes. So like, creating a more robust report might be something that was difficult, but I think it's a conversation worth at least considering.
Dr. Daniels, I think we discussed this recently, and you shared maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but I seem to remember that there's, legal counsel gave us guidance in terms of, and I can't remember the details, but.
Right.
But
Right. And I think that was one of the requests and the concerns that came out in that particular listening session this past Thursday. Community members wanting to know exactly what was said during the listening sessions versus, Jane Doe spoke about XYZ. And in speaking with our legal counsel, I was advised to be very careful about descriptive summaries, because anything that is put in writing can be discoverable, and it can, work against us instead of for us. And so I just think that whatever we choose to do, however we structure it, we need to be wise in how we do that in order to protect the best interests of the school district.
That's fair. And a lot of the times, and I suspect others you go to those listening sessions, and they are intended to listen and to learn. And then those topics may come up in a future work session or board meeting. It may not come up that night, but it's certainly something that I always keep in the back of my mind that, I remember that person spoke about this topic at a listening session. So that's sometimes, I think, how those impacts can happen, even if it's not on a formal report in detail, it still can continue on.
Right.
And have an impact even 6 months or a year later as things come up.
Right. And last Thursday, I did take notes on the back of the note cards that people had signed up on. And very intentionally during our work session, I was able to integrate requests that those community members had shared with us around the listening sessions to make sure that we were acknowledging their voices and some of their concerns that were brought forth. Of course, were we able to, accommodate all of the requests within that they made within the listening session? No, but we did accommodate 80% of the requests made.
Having been at that listening session, I would agree with you. Yes.
So, and I think also there's the opportunity if, when I see what's on the report, if I have a question about, or I'm curious about what was discussed, we as individual board members can discuss that with Dr. Daniels or Dr. Belmont, when, as a follow-up.
I've done that also, definitely.
Yeah.
And we also made it very clear that my door is open, and so if people want to discuss things further with me, they have that opportunity as well.
And sometimes things that come up at the listening session are not necessarily things that are for board action. Sometimes they're things that the superintendent would follow up on. I've definitely been at listening sessions where that's been the case. So in those cases, maybe I'd ask you about it on our next one-on-one or something, but it's not something that I would expect would necessarily come to the board just because it was brought up at a listening session.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of the comment about just care around how in-depth these go. I mean, the listening sessions are public. Anybody can come to them, but they're not recorded. They're not, as a member of the public, I would say, that's a conversation for me to give to the superintendent and the board versus to be public. And, would I really want, I want to feel comfortable having that be the listening session versus broadcast it a whole board meeting.
Right.
And yeah, that even though, the listening session is public, but it's a little different kind of forum. So as far as not going into too much detail,
Yes.
makes sense.
Well, I've said my piece.
You just reminded me, and I didn't read for this. Is there anywhere in the policy that addresses the media?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't remember reading it. I don't know that there's anything that we can, that would be done to manage media presence. My concern, kind of dovetailing, Rachel, on your comment is, let's say we have a mixed group arrive at the listening session. Some are aware that the media is going to be there, some are not.
Right.
Now, we do have in policy that recordings would be stopped if there's a concern about, the comfort of the
Barrier to participation.
barrier to
That's just looking up.
participation, and maybe that's maybe that's where
I
it
don't
lives.
know that we can explicitly say that about the media, though.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that
Certainly we
we're
can't.
not mind readers. We couldn't know if
Right.
a person, stepped down because of, they had to leave, or, was it the presence of the media? I mean,
Right.
we're kind of used to it. The community might not. And, maybe that's just because it's the media.
But I don't think we can restrict the media attending, so I think if at most, maybe we would say something along the lines of speakers should be aware that these are open, and it's possible that local media could attend.
Although they can take notes. I mean, you don't have to record the
Sure.
conversation. I mean, I know I've seen our local reporter,
Oh, yeah.
Scribbling actively notes.
Right.
You still have analog. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it, but you got me thinking about that, Rachel. Maybe that's something to look into, Dr. Daniels? I mean, I don't know.
Under,
Next round.
I would say under listening sessions, number 9, it says the school board reserves the right to conclude the listening session in the event that audio or video recordings are being made, and when such recordings may present a barrier to participation. So that's there.
That's
Right.
it. Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily media, and it can be.
Right.
Yep.
But it's not necessarily, because it could also be that Jane Doe brought her cell phone and wants to record it, wants to
Right.
Facebook Live the listening session.
And if it's a parent, I know we talked about this in the past, if it's a parent who's proud that their student is speaking at a listening
Sure.
session, they're going to
That's-
record, and
that's
that's different.
It's not a barrier to participation,
No.
although the kid may wish it was.
All right. So I think are we good?
I think we're.
Yes.
Okay. So that will be first reading, please. Next, let me get back to my agenda. We're at policies with no changes. Policy 506, student discipline with Dr. Belmont.
Thanks for having me back. 506 is on our annual review schedule. It has been one that's had a lot of changes in the past, but not recently. My understanding is the state did have some robust discussions this past session around student discipline, but didn't pass any changes, and therefore our school board association, we're not advocating for any at this time.
Comments or questions? I do have one. Page 506.8, number 22. I think we need to update the policy reference, internet acceptable use and safety policy, and also the cell phone policy.
In light of policy 524.
Yep.
Thanks for noticing that. I
And
think
then-
also adding policy 524 to the reference section.
Yep.
Okay. Sarah, yeah, thank you.
And then minutia, 506.14, C, number 1, under disciplinary dismissals prohibited, there's an extra comma.
Between readiness and voluntary.
Maybe
So I-
an interesting word that was once there. I don't.
I think this can go on consent even with the change, the update of the policy.
Don't think we need to have a
language.
discussion about a comma.
I don't think we need to have a conversation about a comma, no.
So add the reference to
delete the comma.
524.
Yes,
and
please.
delete that gap. Some gap.
Next, policy 602, organization of the school calendar and school day with Dr. Belmont.
Also, policy 602, presenting with no changes at this time. The School Board Association suggested just bringing your attention to the fact that the legislature in the 2025 session gave the authority for the 26-27 and 27-28 school year to the school board to start before Labor Day.
Questions or comments? No? All right, we will put that on consent. And with that, we can adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.